Setting up an open VPN server with Android clients and connecting to pre-configured Wi-Fi channels on your Android device. All that and more this time on Hack 5. This segment of Hack 5 is brought to you by The Ben Heck Show.
Hello and welcome to Hack 5. My name is Darren Kitchen and it's your weekly dose of technology, and here we are back in studio. I'm hanging out with Greg. How you doing, Greg? And Shin's going to be joining us a little later in the program, but first and foremost, I wanted to thank everybody that emailed me and supported me through Hack Across Europe. That was so much fun. And one of the things that I talked about during Hack Across Europe, part of, best practices of hacker travel, really, your encrypted laptops, your encrypted phone, your, VPNs and SSH tunnels, and all of those things that you should just be actually doing anyway, whether or not you're going through crazy borders. I got so much feedback about this, and I can't believe it. We touched on, oh my gosh, this is like going back to season 1. 7 years ago, we set up a point-to-point tunneling protocol, VPN using, Windows XP, and at the time, it was MS-CHAP 1 was totally broken, so use MS-CHAP v2. It's the authentication protocol that makes PPTP so easy to use. And I used a virtual private server to do a little pop-top action and get a VPN set up very quick and easily, which is great because then you can do your encrypted tunneled traffic over your phone. I mostly like PPTP for its simplicity and ubiquity. Basically, any device under the sun is going to support point-to-point tunneling protocol. However, it's not without its caveats. Thank you to Micah and everybody else that emailed me. I can't believe I missed this at DEF CON 20. Probably just for the reason that we were just running around like crazy at DEF CON 20. I don't know how I missed this one. But Moxie, you guys know Moxie, as well as David Holton, both demonstrated a awesome kick-ass addition to their cloud cracking service. Check this out. The Cloud Cracker blog talking about cracking MS-CHAP version 2 with 100% success rate. And this is really awesome because David Holton, if you're not familiar with his company, he does a bunch of like FPGA stuff, and using his Pico computing project, basically able to crack a MS-CHAP v2 handshake in no time at all. And in fact, they've published the open source CHAP crack application. It's over here on GitHub, on Moxie's GitHub, so you can go ahead and start using that today. Or it's even integrated with Cloud Cracker. If you haven't played around with cloudcracker.com, basically you can upload a hash and have it broken here. It supports NTLM, WPA, SHA, MD5, and now MS-CHAP version 2. The exact authentication mechanism that I was using on my phone's VPN. Wonderful. I feel horrible for not having been aware of this and for even recommending such a thing. Although it was very easy to set up, I can't recommend it now because it's broken, obviously. And one of the reasons, in fact, the only reason really that I even prefer to use something as simple as PPTP was simply the fact that it's ubiquitous. You can find it on iOS devices, on Android devices. Hell, you could probably set it up on a BlackBerry. And that's nice. Previously, I know that we've talked about setting up VPNs with one of my favorites is OpenVPN because it's open source. And the only caveat there is at the time, there was no real easy way to set it up on a mobile phone, on like an Android device without rooting it. And while rooting is awesome, don't get me wrong, ROMs are cool and all of that, I'm not always necessarily keen on installing a bin file from Bob's ROM farm. I don't know who Bob is, nor do I know Cyanogen. Then again, I'm sure he's a great guy. At some point you have to trust your vendor, and in this case I'm using Samsung. However, I was looking for something where I wouldn't have to root. And turns out times have changed, especially since 4.1 of Android, and now you can do an OpenVPN without needing root. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to set it up today. We're going to be putting together OpenVPN, which is an awesome, awesome project. And we've talked about ways to do it with a DTO before, but now what we're going to do is set one up with Untangle. And so here's the thing. Untangle is awesome software. One, it's made in the Bay Area, so representing Two, they're sponsoring Hack 5 with open source, so just going to throw that out there right now. However, if you go back to Season 7, before they ever knew Hack 5 existed, you'll know that we were setting up homebrew servers with their software. So I'm, one, stoked that they're supporting Hack 5 now, and two, stoked that I can use this in a way that is just in perfect context with the kind of stuff that we're doing right now, focusing on, making sure we're secure when we're crossing borders, or even if you're not doing crazy international travel, you should be setting this up. So I run a Untangle server at home as my gateway, pretty much, and we're going to follow through how to set this up because it's a breeze, and I'm doing it all in a virtual machine because actually I did this as well. We'll get into this later, but using Tails virtual machine and then different virtual machines to create an internal network on your own machine. Awesome, awesome. Well, we're going to do it now in VirtualBox because you guys know I love VirtualBox, and yes, I know I'm in Windows. I'm using my Sony again because I'm doing some artwork and such with the Photoshops and the illustrators and stuff. So anyway, the same thing will be Windows, Mac, or Linux because we're just using open source stuff here. It's awesome. It's Oracle's VirtualBox, and basically I've already got a Untangle server set up here, but it's just like creating any other server. You click New and choose the ISO and all of that. But the one thing that you're going to want to make sure that you set up when you install Untangle as a virtual machine is that you're going to need 2 network cards. I mean, obviously, for any router, you're going to need, your network card for the internal and the external interface. And so typically when you set up a VirtualBox machine, it's only going to have one of those NICs. We are going to set up a second, and that's going to allow us to have fun traffic rowdy action on an internal virtual network. How cool is that? So just head over to Settings, and then under Network, your adapter 1 is already in there, and I've left it at bridged, which means it's going to go ahead and use my wireless card here and get an IP address from the network that I'm currently on, and that will be our external network. And adapter 2 is Internet, or internal network. And what you want to do is make sure you're mindful here of the MAC addresses. I've already opened up advanced is where you can find the MAC address here, and this one ends in 2C, that's my internal, whereas the other one ends in C0, so that's my external. So all of that is already set up, so let's go ahead and start the install. Now I've already gone ahead and plugged in mounted the CD-ROM, the ISO file here, and put it on the hard disk. It's a next finish kind of thing. But this is the setup. It's really simple. We're just going to go next. We're going to give it a password, something horrible and temporary. And we just need to make sure that we have the proper network card selected. So the external, it wants to be the MAC address ending in C0. I can come back into settings and make sure that's my bridged LAN network. And C0. So yes, it is the correct one. Just that's the only real tricky part, but as you see, easy enough to just look at the MAC and know which one is which. You can swap them if you need to. And we'll go next. And it's just going to go ahead and figure out the internet connection. In this case, I'm using DHCP because it's really the internet connection that it's getting is just what my laptop has, and my laptop's just connected to the wireless here at the Hack 5 studio. But it would probably be the same if you were, say, connecting it straight up to a cable modem or a DSL modem or whatever have you, and that's how it's set up at my house. And now we get to choose what kind of network we're running as. This is what I run at home, is just as a router, but you can also set it up as a transparent bridge if you'd like. If you already have a router and things of that nature, you can just kind of pop this box in the middle and have it do its thing. And finally, we can specify how we want to do upgrades. I'm going to tell this not to automatically update for right now. I normally would, but I just want to do this as a quick demo, so we're not going to apply any updates. And we're welcome to Untangle, and we can actually, if we'd like to, install some recommended applications, get ourselves a package. I'm not as interested in that right now because I just want to demo one of the free applications, but they do have those packages there. I'm going to go under And under config, you can change all of the settings that you might already imagine as far as your networking and administration of your router. You know, we can set up port forwards here and set up our interfaces. And if we are running a DNS server and host names and things of that nature, pretty basic stuff that you would find on just about any router. But what makes Untangle really powerful is just the ability to have applications, and very much like, you know, your Android and iOS and whatnot, we have an app store. So I'm going to head over to that. And I'm just going to scroll down here to the VPN. You'll see that there's an IPsec VPN. But what I'd like to do is install the Open VPN. And this is a free app, so I just click download free app. And I already have an account here. Now, as this installs, I should point out that we've talked about setting up OpenVPN in the past. We've used Adito, we've used different distributions of it. What I really like here about Untangle is if you're already going to use it as a router or as a bridge, it's really nice to have it just right there in your stack. They do a really great job of setting up the clients and the distribution. So I'll show you that now. So what happens now that I've got this application is it just shows up here in my, well, like a DJ rack or something, like a 19-inch rack mount gear kind of stuff, and I just go into settings, and by default everything is pretty easy to configure. Basically, we set it up as a VPN server here, not a client, but we could set it up as a client to go from, you know, one branch office to another office or something like that. And we set up our certificates, and in this case we just give it things like the organization, where we are. I'm going to say California, San Francisco. And we can choose which network we're going to give ourselves access to. And we can set up really cool routes if we'd like to, but basically what this is going to do is give me access to the internal network, and that's most of the time what you want when you're setting up a VPN. So next, and finish. So that's it as far as setup is concerned. You can go through these tabs and see you've got a connection event log of you know, what's come and gone. You can go through and choose different networks that you want to actually export to those hosts and see the status of it, who's connected, and things of that nature. But we just want to go ahead and add our first client under the Clients tab. Click Add. And give it a name, and I'm just going to say Darren. Or I'm going to be more official and say D Kitchen. That'll be fun. And the default address pool, which we've already seen. And there we go. So the only thing left to do here is to distribute this client. So we'll click Apply. And now we can distribute the client. And here you can see we can download the installer for Windows, or we can configure it for other OSs. And see, this is the really nice thing about OpenVPN as opposed to like PPTP or IPsec, is that there are clients for, you know, Windows, Mac, Linux, now in this case Android. I'm sure there's one for iOS somewhere, and it's really nice to be able to just take this file, which has all of the certificates and everything you knew. We've talked about public key encryption before with SSH, same kind of principle. We take these files, we just put it on that device now, and we can connect. And it's not, you know, as simple as PPTP is with a username and password. So I'm going to go ahead and click Download the configuration for all OSs, and I'm going to save this file. Okay. You're also going to notice here, if you'd like, you could email this as a link to somebody. I could enter in darren@hack5.org and send the email over to myself. But what I'd like to do is very securely send myself all of this package basically to my phone. So here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to come over to my phone and set up an SSH server. So I just picked the first SSH server I found on the marketplace. I've seen some others like DropBear, so your mileage may vary, but basically any SSH server will do. And I've already set this one up, just named it Test, to run on port 4444. And it's pretty cool. I forget the name of this one, but there's, if you just check out the Google Play Store for SSH server, you're going to find a ton of these. But this was a free one that allows me to do a shell, SFTP, and SCP. So that's where this is going to come into play. and I've created a user, and as you can see, it mounts as the SD card, so /storage/SD card 0. So with my server set up, all I have to do is hit start, and yes. Now I have an SSH server going. If I hit info, you'll see my Wi-Fi IP address is 1073.31.187. So here's what's really cool now about Untangle. See, I'm in this Untangle interface.
Join modding wizard Ben Heck and friends as they build and modify a host of amazing community-inspired creations. Be sure to watch new episodes of The Ben Heck Show each week right here at revision3.com/TBHS. In the latest episode of The Ben Heck Show, Ben continues his work on the ultimate gaming system, combining a PS3, Xbox 360, and a Wii U into one amazing machine. Don't forget to go to element14.com/TBHS to find out how you can enter to win Ben's ultimate gaming system as well as other builds from the show.